"We only want successful people here," my sister sneered, blocking the door. "This restaurant is too expensive for you." Then the security guard saw me. "Madam CEO, your usual table?" My family went pale. Owned the entire hotel chain. Prit won. I never thought my own family would try to bar me from my father's 60th birthday celebration. Yet here I stood outside the Grand Azure watching my sister Madeline block the entrance with her designer-clad body. The five-star hotel arcade loomed behind her, its elegant architecture a stark contrast to the ugly scene unfolding at its doors. "You can't be serious," I said, adjusting my simple black dress. One that cost more than Madeline's monthly salary. Not that she knew that. "He's my father." Two mad lines, perfectly painted lips curved into a sneer. "Look, Catherine, this isn't some casual dinner at Applebee's. The Grand Azure is exclusive." She emphasized the word like it was beyond my comprehension. "The tasting menu alone cost more than you probably make in a month." If she only knew that I designed that menu personally with our Michelin-starred chef. Besides, she continued, checking her reflection in the glass doors. "Mom and Dad were clear. They only want successful people here. People who won't embarrass the family." I thought about the irony of her words. Just yesterday, I'd signed off on a $100 million expansion of the Grand Azure chain. Today, I was apparently too embarrassing to enter my own hotel. This whole situation would be almost funny if it didn't hurt so much. 10 years ago, when I decided to leave the family's small accounting firm to pursue my own path in hospitality management, they'd all but disowned me. My father's words still echoed in my memory. "No daughter of mine is going to be a glorified waitress." So I'd let them think what they wanted. Let them believe I was struggling working minor jobs in restaurant management. Meanwhile, I built Azure Hospitality Group into one of the most successful luxury hotel chains in the country. The glorified waitress now owned 35 five-star hotels across 3 continents. Catherine, my mother's sharp voice cut through my thoughts as she appeared behind Medline. "What are you doing here?" "We discussed this." No, they had discussed it. I'd received a text message this morning. "Don't come to Dad's birthday. It's at the Grand Azure. You can't afford it. Don't embarrass us." "I brought a gift," I said, quietly holding up the small envelope. Inside was the deed to a vacation villa in Tuscany, one of the Grand Azure's most exclusive properties. I planned to give it to my father as both a birthday gift and a revelation of who I really was. "Oh, what is it, a gift card to Olive Garden?" Madeline laughed. "Or did you scrape together enough tips to buy him something from the mall?" My mother's eyes narrowed at my simple clutch bag, a handmade Italian leather piece that cost more than Madeline's car. "Whatever it is, I'm sure your sister's gift is more appropriate. She just named junior partner at her firm. You know I knew just like I knew." Her firm was currently in negotiations to lease office space in one of my buildings, the lease they desperately needed and couldn't quite afford. Madeline's doing so well. Mom continued warming to her favorite topic. "New house in the suburbs, luxury car, wonderful fiancé with such good prospects." She paused, giving me a critical once-over. "And you... well, at least you're trying, I suppose." I thought about my penthouse overlooking Central Park, my collection of rare sports cars, the private jet I'd flown in on this morning. Piss, Mom. At least I'm trying. Speaking of trying, Madeline smirked. "That dress. Couldn't you have made an effort? This is the Grand Azure, not some diner." I ran my hand over the sophisticated black silk custom made by one of Paris's most exclusive designers, the same designer who had refused to make anything for Madeline last month. Not that she needed to know that connection. "It's what I could manage," I said mildly. "Well, you can't come in," Madeline declared. "We reserve the entire VIP floor. It's for family and distinguished guests only by the VIP floor." My very floor. The one I personally redesigned last year down to selecting every piece of artwork and crystal chandelier, the distinguished guests being. I asked, genuinely curious about you were invited. "Oh, you wouldn't know them." My mother waved her hand dismissively. The Andersons. They own that successful law firm. The Blackwood's old money, you know. And Mr. Harrison from the bank. All very important people. I suppressed a smile. Thomas Anderson leased 3 of my properties. The Blackwoods had recently begged for membership at my most exclusive resort. And Mr. Harrison, his bank was currently seeking a major loan from my investment group. Right, I said. Very important people. Exactly, Madeline said, clearly pleased. I understood my place. So you see why you can't be here. What would people think if they knew Dad's failure of a daughter was serving their drinks? Madeline, our mother, chided softly, though her eyes showed approval. Be nice. Catherine made her choices. If she'd stayed with the family firm like you did, things would be different. The family firm that now occupied a modest office in one of my buildings, always barely making rent. Just then, my brother-in-law Charles appeared, straightening his tie. What's taking so long everyone's waiting for? Oh, he spotted me, and his face dropped. Catherine didn't expect to see you here. Clearly not, I replied. Charles just made vice president at his bank, my mother announced proudly. Junior vice president. I corrected, automatically knowing his exact position because his bank handled some of my smaller accounts. Well, it's more impressive than whatever you're doing, Madeline snapped. What is it now, bank manager at some chain restaurant? I thought about the board meeting I'd left early this morning where we discussed acquiring that very bank. Charles worked for the paperwork. Was probably still sitting on my desk upstairs in my private office. Something like that. I said, this is ridiculous, my mother declared Catherine. Just go. You're making a scene. I'll tell your father you couldn't make it. Couldn't afford it. You mean, Madeline added with a laugh. I looked past them through the grand entrance at the hotel I'd built from the ground up at the marble floors. I'd selected the crystal chandeliers. I'd commissioned the artwork. I'd personally curated all of it. Every inch was mine. For a moment, I considered walking away. Let them have their party. Let them keep believing what they wanted to believe. But then I remembered something my first mentor had told me. Success doesn't mean anything if you can't stand up for yourself. We only want successful people here. My sister sneered, blocking the door. This restaurant is too expensive for you. Then the security guard saw me. Madam CEO, your usual table. My family went pale. I owned the entire hotel chain. Pret, too. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the strength of everything I built without their support or approval. Actually, I said quietly, I think I'll stay a bit before my mother could respond. The heavy glass doors swung open and James, my head of security, stepped out. He'd been with me since I bought my first struggling hotel 7 years ago, helping transform it into the flagship of the Azure chain. Is everything all right here, Madam SEO? His voice carried clearly across the entrance. Your usual table is ready, and Chef Michelle held the menu, tasting for your approval. With the silence that followed was deafening. Mouth fell open, her perfectly applied lipstick suddenly garish against her pale face. My mother gripped the brass door handle for support. James, I smiled warmly. Perfect timing. My family was just explaining how I couldn't afford to dine here, ma'am. He looked genuinely confused. But you own Grandeur, the entire hotel chain. Yes, I do. I turned to my stunned family. Shall we go inside? I believe you've reserved the 5th floor. My VIP floor, to be precise. Charles found his voice first. This is some kind of joke. You're just a restaurant manager. Actually, James interjected professionally. Ms. Catherine is the founder and CEO of Azure Hospitality Group. She owns all 35 Grand Azure hotels worldwide, along with our resort properties and restaurant chains. Madeline's designer clutch slipped from her fingers, clattering on the marble steps. But that's impossible. The Grand Azure is worth billions, over $5 billion. Last I checked, I finished for her. Which makes your comment about me not being able to afford the tasting menu rather amusing. I stepped past them into my hotel's lobby, where the staff immediately straightened to attention. Good evening, Miss Catherine, my front desk manager called out. The executive suite is prepared for your father's birthday celebration. Thank you, Sarah. I turned back to my family still frozen in the doorway. Coming. Do they follow me in silence, looking around as if seeing the hotel for the first time? Every staff member we passed greeted me by name, each showing the genuine respect I'd earned through years of hands-on leadership. But your dress? My mother finally managed staring at my simple black dress with new eyes custom made in Paris, around 30, and I believe I have a terrible habit of not checking price tags anymore. I led them to the private elevator, the one that required a special key I pulled from my clutch. Hold like Madeline's dress, which I believe is a knockoff. The real Valentino collection hasn't been released yet. I know because I attended the private showing last month. The elevator doors opened directly into the VVIP lounge where my father's birthday celebration was in full swing. The room fell silent as we entered. Catherine. My father stood up from his place at the head table, his face a mix of shock and confusion. What are you doing here? Your mother said you couldn't afford it. I finished walking over to him. Happy birthday, Dad. I hope you don't mind that I'm crashing the party in my own hotel. Your hotel? An assertion from the bank stepped forward, his face breaking into a relieved smile. Miss Catherine, I had no idea you were related to James Thompson. We've been trying to secure a meeting with you for months about that loan. Catherine Owen's granddaughter Thomas Anderson joined in. My God, James, your daughter is the mysterious CEO who's been buying up prime real estate across the city. Then my father sank back into his chair, the color draining from his face. All this time when we thought you were just a glorified waitress. I raised an eyebrow. Your words, I believe, from the day I left the family firm to pursue my dreams in hospitality. But why didn't you tell us? My mother demanded, still clutching her. Feels like a lifeline. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. You didn't believe in me 10 years ago when I needed your support. Why would I share my success with people who only measure worth by the size of someone's bank account? I paused, though, by that metric. I suppose I'm worth more than everyone in this room combined. Madeline collapsed into a nearby chair, her face ashen, the villa in the south of France. I tried to rent last summer, the one that was mysteriously unavailable. Mine, I confirmed. Just like the office building your firm is struggling to lease Charles and the resort membership. You've been waitlisted for another year. Catherine, my father started his voice unsteady. I save it. I held up my hand. I didn't reveal this to hurt you, though. You've hurt me plenty over the years. I did it because I'm tired of hiding my success. To spare your pride, I turned to address the room. Please enjoy the party. Everything is on the house. My house. I started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Dad. That envelope Madeline wouldn't let me give you. It's the deed to a villa in Tuscany, one of my most exclusive properties. Consider it a birthday gift from your failure of a daughter. The next hour was surreal. People who had ignored me at previous family gatherings suddenly wanted to discuss business opportunities. The Blackwoods practically begged for that resort membership. Mr. Harrison cornered me about his bank's loan application. Through it all, my family sat in stunned silence. Madeline's fiancé disappeared after learning her guaranteed future partnership, but her firm depended on a lease she couldn't afford in my building. Charles kept making calls, presumably to update his resume. My mother alternated between crying and trying to explain to other guests that she'd always believed in her daughter's potential. As the evening wound down, I found my father alone on the terrace staring out at the city lights. Those buildings. He pointed to the skyline. How many do you own? Enough, I replied, standing beside him. The family firm's building included. He nodded slowly. I was wrong about you, Catherine. So terribly wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. Can you ever forgive us? I considered his question, thinking about all the years of dismissal and condescension. Forgiveness isn't the issue, Dad. Respect is. You never respected my choices or believed in my abilities. You only respect success after it's proven." And now I smiled slightly. "No. You can tell people your daughter owns Grand Azure. That should satisfy your need for impressive dinner party conversation." I left him there, heading to my private office on the top floor. Tomorrow, the family dynamic would shift dramatically. Madeline would no longer be the golden child. My mother would frantically rewrite history to claim she'd always supported me. Charles and his bank would probably face acquisition. Story 2. My younger brother Dylan and his ex-wife arrived on the day of my engagement and said, "This party is for us, not for Alex." In front of 80 visitors, that phrase seemed like a slap in the face, and the whole hall became silent. And all of this occurred just because I wouldn't call off the engagement party, notwithstanding my parents' request that I do so. I didn't dispute with him after he stated that. He and my parents were taken away after I discreetly phoned security. Come along with me as I share the tale of how I came to understand one of the most important things I have ever learned. Sometimes you have to let go of the ones you previously loved the greatest in order to love yourself. Hi everyone, Alex is my name. I am 30 years old and I now reside in an apartment in San Francisco, California's Mission District with my wife Sarah. After years of arduous struggle, I finally purchased this condo 3 months ago. I work as a software developer for a reputable Silicon Valley tech business. I have been able to develop my abilities and establish a secure existence thanks to this profession. Sarah and I were married a week ago. We are now having a great honeymoon in Hawaii. After a protracted period of unrest, we welcome calm in this way, to get at this state of joy. My mother, father, and younger brother were all poisonous members of my family, who I had to break off relations with. In the past, our family wasn't particularly content, but we also weren't alienated. We continued to meet together every Thanksgiving and Christmas to tell commonplace tales. However, when I informed them that Sarah and I were organizing an engagement party 6 months ago, things began to go south. Their response was quite different from what I had anticipated, which was that they would be pleased and encouraging. 6 months ago on a Saturday, the family drama began. I contacted my family that day to let them know that Sarah and I were getting engaged. My mother was the first person I told. My voice sounded excited when she answered the phone. "I have wonderful news, Mom," I said. "I'm throwing an engagement party for Sarah, rather than receiving applause or congrats." The other end paused for a long moment. My mother then sighed deeply and said, "Alex, I'm not sure this is the right time." As soon as she said it, a feeling of dread began to creep in. What she meant by it, I questioned her directly. She clarified, "I know Dylan is going through a tough time," with obvious concern. In addition to losing his job and going through a divorce, he also has a gambling addiction. He may feel worse about his life as a result of your engagement. I was truly taken aback. My mother cared more about Dylan's feelings than she did about my pleasure. Even at the age of 26, Dylan was still unable of taking charge of his own life. I made an effort to remain composed and added, "Mom, Sarah, and I are having a great moment. Why are we discussing Dylan?" I heard my dad's voice at that very moment. I had the impression that my mother had put me on loudspeaker in a forceful voice. My father yelled at me, "You must consider Dylan's sentiments, Alex. Family should always come first." It seemed like someone had poured a bucket of cold water over my feelings at that very instant. I had hoped that my family would join me in celebrating and applaud enthusiastically. However, that was not their decision. To figure out why my family responded, they focused on Dylan's emotions, their golden kid, the manner in which they did. I need to discuss our past together, Dylan and I. Favoritism was evident in the home where we were raised. When I was 8 years old, I had to prove myself all the time. I was required to complete my schoolwork on my own without assistance. Dylan, meantime, had a private teacher to assist him learn to read and write at that time. My parents congratulated me when I received the highest grades possible. However, they celebrated throughout high school by cooking Dylan's favorite dishes and buying him gifts as soon as he had mediocre grades. The partiality became much more obvious. I had to work for the money at 16 because I wanted to get a computer that I liked. I went to school, delivered newspapers at 5 in the morning, and then worked an evening shift at the grocery store. Dylan, who was 12 at the time, received everything he desired, including the newest PlayStation and a pricey mountain bike. He was given everything. I was awarded a full scholarship to study computer science at UC Berkeley after finishing high school with honors. My parents responded with worry rather than pride, telling me not to tell Dylan about the scholarship. He could feel guilty about it. Years later, I was on the verge of graduating from college. At the age of 18, Dylan was graduating from high school with subpar marks. Instead, then pushing him to do better. "Not everyone is cut out for college," my dad replied with a reassuring grin. "Dylan is talented in other ways." It turns out that those other skills were gambling on sports and playing poker. I made a 6-figure income as a senior software engineer 8 years later at the age of 30. Even though Dylan was still financially reliant on our parents at the age of 26, I was still considered fortunate by my family. And it was Dylan who needed assistance. During our early years, Dylan was constantly under my shadow, either academically or professionally. However, he attempted to prove that he could defeat me at least once by getting married first 2 years ago, after learning that Sarah and I were having a serious relationship. Dylan had barely known Jessica for 3 months when he announced his marriage to her, shocking the whole family. Sarah and I hadn't even begun talking about marriage after 2 years of dating. My father gave Dylan a proud smile when he told him the news, saying, "See, Dylan knows what he wants in life." In contrast to someone who is 28 years old and yet lacks a strategy, that remark was directed at Sarah and my relationship. Despite my frustration, I said nothing. A lavish 5-star hotel hosted Dylan's wedding, which drew close to 150 people. To pay for it, my parents took out $50,000 from their retirement account. In the meanwhile, they took me out to supper at Olive Garden when I received a summa cum laude degree from college. Dylan's marriage, however, quickly became a catastrophe. Jessica discovered that he had been gambling online using their shared credit card. Furthermore, without notifying her, he obtained a bank loan in her name. Jessica sought for divorce a year after the wedding. With tears in her eyes, she lost $50,000 as a result of the obligations Dylan had accrued in court. She said that despite his vows to change, he continued to gamble while we were on our honeymoon. After everything, Dylan placed the blame on others rather than accepting responsibility. He informed our parents. I never understood Jessica. She was very rigid. He also told his buddies that the casino had cheated. I was conned. Dylan returned to live with our parents as a 15-year-old after the divorce. I paid for all of my expenditures, including rent and health insurance, while living on my own in San Francisco. When I went home, however, I could always hear my parents groaning to one another about how Dylan was going through a difficult moment and that we needed to help him. Dylan began to get agitated and bitter in the months that followed. Every time I brought gifts home or discussed my work while giving him the specifics of a new project, he would seem irritated. "Not everyone gets as lucky as you," Dylan said sarcastically as he interrupted me. His attitude only worsened after that. He became envious of my bond with Sarah. Every time she joined us for supper, Dylan either ignored her or said something passive-aggressive. Dylan once gave me a sour look and remarked, "She's only with you for the money," as Sarah was assisting my mom in the kitchen. "You know, just as Jessica left me, she'll leave once she finds out how dull you are." I nearly lost my patience at that point, but I answered firmly to avoid adding to the family's stress. "Don't you ever criticize Sarah, Dylan," in the months following Dylan's return home. Our family's environment grew oppressive. Every time I phoned my parents, they would ask me a few courteous questions before abruptly switching the subject to Dylan in an anxious manner. Dylan is currently attending a therapist, according to my mother. He is making an effort to change his life, or my father would grumble. Having Dylan at home is difficult. He refuses to seek for work since he is sad. My parents defended Dylan by claiming he wasn't ready when I recommended that he take a part-time job to help him recover drive. He requires time to recover. I began to feel alienated from my family at that period. Every time I mentioned Sarah or our plans, the atmosphere instantly changed. My parents would act uneasy as though my joy in some way disregarded Dylan's suffering. Let's fast forward to 6 months ago, immediately following my announcement of the engagement party to my parents. My dad called me on a Friday afternoon a week later. "I've been considering your engagement, Alex," he added, getting right to the topic in a serious tone. "The celebration should be canceled or kept basic, in my opinion." I was taken entirely by surprise. Why would I do that? "Dad," I questioned him. "This isn't the correct moment," he stated calmly after a little pause. "Dylan is now going through a difficult time. He can feel worse about his life after a large celebration. In addition, the funds may enable him to launch a company." When he brought up Dylan, my blood began to boil. "Are you saying that I should cancel my engagement party and give that money to Dylan instead?" I inquired frankly. His tone immediately hardened. "Not cancel," he said. "Simply keep it modest. Just family is sufficient." I wanted to shout at that time since he was acting irrationally. The engagement celebration was all my own expense. I hadn't requested any money from them. My dad and I talked for more than 10 minutes, and the more ridiculous the topic grew. He made the suggestion in a convincing manner. "All you have to do is throw a little engagement party at your house. Bring along some close family members. You'll save at least $30,000 that way. You can lend Dylan the money you save so he can start a coffee shop. He's previously investigated a place." "Correct." I then made an effort to remain composed and informed him that Sarah and I had spent 6 months organizing this. Before I could complete my sentence, we had already invited friends and even paid a portion of the service fees. In a firm voice, he interrupted me and said, "Everything can be canceled. Family is what counts. Dylan's elder brother must assist him." He then detonated yet another bomb. "In addition to the party funds, he advised you to give Dylan an additional $100,000 to launch a legitimate business. He needs the right funding." I heard that right away. I froze and made the $100,000 request. "Are you even aware of the amount of money involved?" Calmly, he reasoned, but firmly. "You earn a great deal of money. For you, it's nothing." Dylan, however, sees it as his future. He said he would reimburse it after the store made money. My patience was totally gone at that point. "Dylan has never held a steady job for more than 6 months, I retorted. "How is it possible for him to manage a coffee shop with nearly $130,000? The second I said that, I knew I had crossed the line by insulting my dad's golden child. His voice instantly turned angry and he shouted, "You don't talk about your brother like that. Dylan needs a chance. Just because you've been lucky doesn't mean you have the right to look down on others right after that." The call ended in tension, with my dad's final words echoing in my ear. Think about it. Family is more important than a party. 2 days after my dad's phone call, Sarah told me my mom had called her that morning, after some polite small talk. My mom, speaking in a sweet and persuasive tone, said to Sarah, "You know, Dylan is going through a hard time. I'm worried that a big party will make him feel even worse. Could you convince Alex to keep it smaller?" Hearing that Sarah felt uncomfortable but tried to stay composed, she responded, "Alex and I have been planning this for a long time. Everything is already booked. We can't cancel it." Even though Sarah had been clear, my mom continued pleading with a soft, pleading voice. She said, "I understand, but family is more important, sweetheart. Dylan needs support from his brother. If you genuinely love Alex, you'll understand that." That phone chat lasted 30 minutes, during which my mom kept repeating concepts like family duty and essential sacrifice. Sarah returned home that day in a foul mood, and on the same day, Dylan began sending me long text messages. The first one said, "Alex, I realize I've made a lot of errors, but I need your help. I don't want to ruin your great day, but it feels like you've forgotten about your little brother." The second message was considerably lengthier. People claim you're the successful and I'm the failure. But do you know how that makes me feel? I want a chance to prove myself too. This coffee shop is the only dream I have. And the final message stated, if you care about this family, you'll assist me. Not for the money, but for the tie between brothers. These messages arrived across 3 days, and I missed calls in the middle of the night. Dylan even left a voicemail. His voice choked with passion. I need you, Alex. I'm at a loss on what to do. A few days later, Dylan proceeded to the next stage, smearing Sarah's name in front of the wider family after seeing that the direct approach was failing. I began receiving odd calls from family members. My mom's younger sister, Aunt Linda, called and inquired in a worried manner. I've heard that Sarah has some problems with your family, Alex. I was so perplexed that I immediately inquired what the problems were, and her voice was hesitant. Dylan told me Sarah doesn't respect the family, Linda added. As soon as he heard it, he remarked, she's forcing you to pick between her and us. I was taken aback. I quickly pushed back. Who made that statement? That is unlike anything Sarah has ever done. However, Dylan had already had a profound effect on Aunt Linda. She answered, Sarah has another boyfriend, Dylan added. She's only with you for financial security, he says. I was furious as I hung up the telephone. After that, my 85-year-old grandmother, Uncle David, and Uncle Robert all made identical calls. Dylan had told them everything, and they had all repeated more ridiculous tales about Sarah. Dylan went so far as to fabricate proof. He gave family screenshots of fake text exchanges along with an explanation. Sarah forwarded these texts to another man. Alex doesn't know what's going on. The high point was when Dylan pretended to be worried and contacted my closest friend Mike, who had known Sarah for years. I'm concerned about Alex, Dylan informed him. He is being cheated on by Sarah. All she wants is his money. His best buddy is you. You ought to intervene. Fortunately, Mike was familiar with Sarah and contacted me right away, seeming concerned. Alex, what's up with your brother? He said. He told me some amazing things about Sarah over the phone just now. You must keep an eye out for him. That being said, Mike filled me in on everything he spoke with Dylan. We hung up the phone after I thanked him a few minutes later. I couldn't stand it any longer after finding out that Dylan was spreading unfounded stories and that Sarah was being indoctrinated by my family. I made the decision to face them head on. I traveled unannounced from San Francisco to Tacoma one Saturday afternoon. Dylan was watching TV in the living room as my parents were making supper when I unlocked the door and entered. With a startled expression, Dylan instantly composed himself and replied, Alex, why didn't you tell us you were coming? In a phony, cheerful tone. I didn't spend time saying hello. I inquired directly, what did you tell Aunt Linda about Sarah to Dylan? Dylan's countenance shifted as I inquired. He got to his feet and answered defensively. All I said was the truth. Sarah isn't healthy for you. My parents noticed the tension and came in from the adjacent room at that same moment. My mother attempted to intervene right away. What's going on? Alex attempting to maintain composure, I clarified. Dylan has been disparaging Sarah in front of our family members. Instead of facing Dylan, he's making me choose between her and the family by spreading rumors that she has another lover. My father stood up for him. Dylan is just watching out for you, he continued. He believes Sarah is not a good fit for our family. Dylan became more confident with the support of his parents. In a provocative manner, it's right, he said. All Sarah wants is your money. She is taking advantage of you. I nearly lost control at that point. I yelled as I stepped toward Dylan, my hands clenched. Repeat that, observing my rage. Dylan took a step back, but he didn't give up. He returned fire. That's the reality. Why are you unable to view it? This family is being torn apart by her. You left us and chose some random chick. I responded with a shout. Never again make fun of Sarah. Then, prepared to hit him, I sprang at him and grabbed him by the collar. Luckily, my dad intervened just in time to prevent it from getting out of hand. He then gave me the order to leave the house. Tensions within the family increased in the days that followed. In an attempt to mend the family's wounds, my dad's older brother, Uncle Tom, decided to throw a large family get-together at his house as Christmas drew near. Sarah and I initially objected to going, but Uncle Tom called and begged me to. "Alex, the whole family needs to sit down and talk," he said in a sincere tone. "These misconceptions must be dispelled." We accepted that invitation. We visited Uncle Tom's house on Christmas Day. There were about 20 relatives present, including cousins, aunts, and uncles. At first, everything seemed to be all right. People were talking about life and work in a friendly manner. Dylan pretended to be normal and even gave Sarah a kind greeting. However, when Uncle Tom proposed that we all gather around the table for an open discussion, everything changed. He had good intentions. His desire for peace led to a complete catastrophe. Dylan abruptly got up as soon as everyone had sat down. His voice shook and his eyes were red as though he had been crying. "I can't keep quiet any longer." There was silence in the room. Everyone looked at Dylan, who spoke in a stutter. He went on, "This family is being torn apart by Alex. He doesn't care about anything other than hosting a lavish engagement party while I'm in pain." My hand was squeezed beneath the table by Sarah. I tried to maintain my composure by clenching my other fist. With his performance, Dylan continued. I pleaded with him. I only requested a tender $1,000 loan to launch my company. However, he silenced me and labeled me a failure. Uncle Robert, who is notoriously strict, gave me a perplexed look. "Alex, is that true?" Before I could respond, Dylan exploded. "Alex gets everything handed to him. Scholarships, a great job, a beautiful girlfriend. And what about me? I just wanted one chance. But he treats me like trash." At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and roared, "Dylan, you're lying!" But he had planned his next move. With a voice full of desperation, he shouted, "See, he never listens to me. To Alex, I've always been a burden." The argument exploded. I couldn't stay silent any longer and responded firmly. "Dylan, you and our parents wanted me to cancel the engagement party and use the money for you, and you didn't ask for $10,000. You asked for $100,000. Did you tell everyone how much you lost gambling? Did you tell them Jessica had to pay $50,000 for your debts?" Dylan instantly denied it. "That's different. I made mistakes, but now I'm working to repair them." I asked him, "How are you attempting to solve anything by spreading falsehoods about Sarah to the whole family, by making up lies that she has another guy?" The room changed, and Linda glanced at Dylan in disbelief. "Dylan, did you say that under pressure?" Dylan's true personality began to surface. With a furious voice, he screamed, "I was only warning everyone about Sarah. She's wrecking our family." My parents, who had remained silent the entire time, suddenly spoke. However, they stood up for Dylan rather than stopping him. "Alex," my father responded sharply, "you've gone too far. Your brother is Dylan. You're meant to assist him, and my mother, the one I believed would still comprehend, took as well." Dylan let out a sigh. "Family is the most important thing," she remarked. "For a female, you can't leave your brother." When Sarah heard it, she got up and declared, "I'm going out," with tears in her eyes. Quietly, she walked away from the table. There was tension and stillness in the room. It dawned on me then that my family had made their decision. I always took responsibility, yet they picked Dylan with all his faults. Without saying farewell to everyone, I left the supper right away after following Sarah and taking her hand. After we arrived home that evening, Sarah sat on the couch with her eyes still red from sobbing. She clung to me. "Alex," she added in a stifled voice, "I don't want to be the reason you broke off your family after hearing that." I gave her a closer hug. I was strong enough to tell her that I was still with her. I made the most difficult choice of my life the next morning. I made the decision to sever all contact with Dylan and my parents. The decision was not simple, but after everything that had transpired, I was aware that they would eventually ruin my entire existence if I continued to put up with their actions. Dylan was always making demands. Sarah, the person I love, would have to put up with constant false allegations, and my parents would never stop putting pressure on me. I made the decision to formally notify Dylan and my parents 2 days after Christmas. I didn't want anybody else to tell them. I sent a brief but concise message. I've made the decision not to invite Dylan mom or dad to the engagement party in light of the events during the Christmas get-together. This choice has been well thought out and is definitive. After 5 minutes, my phone began to ring constantly. My mother was the first to call. She spoke in a panic. "You can't do this, Alex. Your mommy is me. How come I can't get an invitation to your wedding?" Remaining composed, I answered. "Mom, this isn't the wedding. The engagement celebration is taking place. And after you stood up for Dylan when he made fun of Sarah, your endorsement doesn't seem credible to me." "My joy," she stated in a begging voice. "All I want is family harmony, Alex. Dylan is also in pain," I answered. "Have you ever inquired about my pain? When Dylan injured Sarah, did you ever give a damn about how I felt?" My mom started weeping as the call came to an end. Then my father called. Anger was in his voice. "That brat is ungrateful. I spent 30 years raising you, and you treat your family like way. I didn't hold back this time. You reared me for 18 years, I said. I've been taking care of myself for the last 12. And did you ever ask me what I needed in those 12 years? He retorted in a resentful manner. "You've got a good job and money. What else do you need?" I asked. "A real family. One that loves, not controls," he said. I hung up. At 9 p.m., Dylan called, voice shaking. "Alex, if I can't come to the engagement party, I'll end my life." I was more tired than angry when I heard the usual warning. I answered. "How many times have you said that, Dylan, each and every time? You don't receive your desired outcome. You'll take your own life, you say." He yelled in desperation. "I mean it this time. There's nothing left for me. You have no idea how much I depend on you." I immediately hung up on him. And when I heard Dylan's warning, I didn't feel bad for the first time. Rather, I was relieved that I had finally identified it for what it was. Manipulation of emotions. The extended family soon learned that I had not invited Dylan and my parents to the engagement party in the days that followed. After a range of responses, 2 distinct viewpoints quickly emerged. My father's younger brother, Uncle David, called and reprimanded me in an irritated manner. "No matter what, Alex, what you're doing is wrong. Your parents are still your parents. Your blood cannot be severed." In an attempt to be kind, my mom's younger sister, Jennifer, also called. "I understand your anger, Alex, but family is family," she added. "Please stand back and give this some thought." My grandma, who is 82, even described her voice as wavering. "I don't understand what's going on, Alex," she remarked. "However, I am aware that families are expected to be together." I felt like the bad guy after those calls, as if I had done something that could not be forgiven. Then, however, there were voices of support. My dad's older brother, Uncle Tom, who was present at the Christmas meal when Dylan's drama occurred, phoned in a positive voice. "Alex, I understand your decision," he added. "Your parents have allowed Dylan to go too far for too long. Uncle Tom's son, Ryan, also gave me a call to provide encouragement." You made the proper decision, Alex. I witnessed Dylan's Christmas treatment of Sarah. It was not acceptable, above all. Additionally, my mom's older sister, Emma, who has always been fair-phoned and had a clear voice. "Alex," she said, "I've heard the story from a variety of perspectives. In order to keep Sarah and your happiness safe, you took the correct decision. Dylan must develop his sense of accountability. During family get-togethers, this division led to contentious arguments. Due to their divergent opinions on what they referred to as the Alex problem, some family even stopped communicating with one another. The most important thing, though, was that I started to realize who genuinely cared for and understood me. Those that valued truth and emotional well-being were the ones who backed my choice. The people who supported Dylan and my parents were only interested in being called family, not in doing what was right. Dylan used his lowest tactic to attempt to ruin my connection with Sarah after realizing he couldn't persuade me to alter my opinion. Sarah got a Facebook message from an account called Michael a week before to the engagement celebration. The initial communication appeared to be innocuous. "Hello, Sarah. Alex and I were friends in college. I want to tell you something significant about him." "Interesting," Sarah said. "Hello, Michael. What is it?" The subsequent communications then became poisonous. It was written by Michael. "Alex hasn't told you the truth. He informed me that he is only getting engaged since he thinks that age is putting pressure on him. You are not loved by him. Even worse," was the next message. He added that he's considering ending the relationship after the wedding and that you're a little needy. He doesn't want to look foolish in front of his family. Sarah read the texts and was saddened and perplexed. "Alex, did you see any of this?" she questioned, bringing them to me with a troubled expression on her face. "I saw the texts right away. Because of the writing style and the intimate information, I knew it was Dylan. It was revealed by something only a family member would know." Sarah's hand was in mine. "Do you trust me, Sarah?" I said, looking her in the eyes. "This is something I have never mentioned to anyone before. Dylan is attempting to destroy us with this." Dylan didn't stop there either. In order to provide modified pictures that gave the impression that I was hugging another lady at a pub, he set up a phony Instagram account. According to the caption, "Alex is a true playboy." Sarah, poor thing, has no idea. The last straw was when Dylan pretended to be worried and contacted Sarah's parents in Portland. "I'm Alex's younger brother," he added. "I believe you should be aware that Sarah is not a good fit for Alex. He struggles with drinking and gambling. Our entire family is concerned." Fortunately, Sarah's parents had known enough about me to be aware of the reality. They phoned Sarah right away to let her know about the odd and dubious phone call. When I discovered Dylan was sabotaging things using shady methods, I started gathering proof. I recorded the precise times each incident occurred, maintained phone records, and took screenshots of every phony message. I tracked out the phony account's IP addresses. Naturally, given all the evidence, they all led to my parents' home where Dylan resided. I messaged everyone in the family, even the relatives who had chastised me. "The Truth About Dylan and Why I Had to Protect Sarah" was the title of the message. I typed a message. "After looking over this information, I hope you can see why I chose not to invite my parents and Dylan to the engagement celebration, even if some of you feel that I was being harsh. I've included screenshots of the IP address reports and the phony messages." Following that communication, I had a range of responses, but Emma, Uncle Tom, and even Uncle David, one of my most critical critics, supported me. They emailed and called to reassure me that I made the right decision, but my parents' reaction was very different. They stood up for Dylan more vehemently than ever before, refusing to apologize or accept the reality. My mother called in a furious tone. "How could you degrade your brother in this way?" she screamed, delivering the items to the entire family. "You've overreached yourselves." "Even terrible," was my dad. "You've ruined Dylan's reputation," he remarked in a menacing voice over the phone. "You have my undying forgiveness for this." Something suddenly made perfect sense to me at that very time. There was no chance that my parents would change. They would always stand up for him, regardless of Dylan's actions or the extent to which he went over the bounds. And I would always be held accountable, the kid who had always assumed responsibility. Approximately 10 days following the Christmas get-together, the engagement party eventually showed up. For that day, Sarah and I had meticulously arranged everything. There were 80 visitors at the opulent resort in Napa Valley, including family members, friends, and co-workers who helped us out. The morning proceeded without incident. I donned a navy blue suit, and Sarah looked gorgeous in her champagne-colored dress. The photographer took pictures of us. I double-checked the setup and thought it was flawless. Arrivals began at 2:00 p.m. There were Sarah's Portland-based relatives, encouraging cousins, and co-workers. Waiting for Sarah in front of the altar, the engagement ceremony formally started at 3 p.m. Suddenly, there was a ruckus behind me. I turned to see Dylan and his ex-wife Jessica enter the reception area. My folks were close behind them. They all wore black as though they were going to a funeral. Each visitor looked about. The tension in the air increased immediately. Sarah, clutching her bouquet, turned pale as they entered without hesitation. Moving to the middle of the room, Dylan spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "We are having this party, not Alex." There was silence in the room. The photographer's camera clicking away was the only sound audible. Fortunately, he continued to do his professional duties. "I never thought I'd see Jessica there yet," she moved forward. Next, Dylan. "Jessica and I have overcome many misunderstandings," he remarked in a shaky voice. "We want to start again today. This location seems like the ideal setting for it." That's when I understood Dylan's strategy. He had persuaded Jessica to come back, most likely by promising her something. He was setting up the situation to divert attention and spoil our celebration of our engagement. The room was filled with a few silent gasps. Unsure of how to respond, a few visitors exchanged glances. Many people turned their attention from me to Dylan and Jessica as though they were the main attraction of the day. Immediately thereafter, I motioned for security to escort them out. "Call the cops for me if they won't go." 2 security officers came over right away and asked them to leave the gathering. Dylan yelled at them at first, saying, "This is my party." However, they discreetly left the event after encountering the security team's tough stance. I apologized for the disruption and turned back to the visitors when they had left. "Let's keep having fun." Rail, affection. The room was filled with applause. Sarah embraced me. She muttered, her voice stifled. "I'm proud of you, Alex." Sarah and I made the decision to stop communicating with Dylan and my parents following that wild engagement party. We banned them on all social media sites and updated our phone numbers. My mother, father, and Dylan were not there at our wedding, which took place at a modest resort in Sonoma Valley a week prior to the story's telling. On that day, Emma delivered a poem in behalf of my mother, and Uncle Tom escorted me down the aisle in lieu of my father. My true family had grown out of the relatives who had first helped us. I was very relieved as I stood at the altar and saw Sarah approach me in her stunning white bridal gown. There was no suspense, no drama, no attempt to take center stage. Only sincere blessings and unadulterated love were present. The entire audience laughed and wept throughout my closest buddy Mike's best man speech. According to him, Alex and Sarah have demonstrated that sometimes we need to have the courage to let go of things that no longer match our life in order to discover real happiness. I realized then and there that severing my family had been the finest move I had ever taken. I will never again allow anyone else to have control over my life now that it is mine. I'm not telling my tale to boast or to win pity, but rather to reach out to anyone who might be listening at the moment and experiencing anything similar. Someone's family is putting pressure on them. Maybe someone is having to decide between their happiness and the irrational demands of their loved ones. This is what I want to tell you. Don't be scared to establish limits. Don't allow anyone, not even your family, to change you into someone you're not. I thought I had to put up with everything for 30 years just because of their family. If I didn't make sacrifices for myself, I believed I would grow up to be an unappreciative youngster. However, I was mistaken. You never have to ruin yourself to prove that you are in love. I know I made the correct choice as I sit here on this beach and watch Sarah reading a book next to me. Although it's mine, life isn't flawless. No more guilt, no more drama, no more manipulation. That is not my property. Saying no to the ones you love the most can sometimes be a sign of true pleasure. It's not selfish either. That's how you survive. Please keep this in mind if you find yourself in a similar circumstance. Happiness is something you deserve. You are entitled to a life free from emotional games and guilt. I appreciate you hearing my tale. Tell me what you think by leaving a comment. Was it the correct decision for me? If you thought this story was helpful, please subscribe to the channel so I can hear about more of your real-life experiences. Remember to press the notification bell as well. I wish to share fresh stories with you initially. I'll see you in the next one, and be careful. Story 3. You're calling off my trip, I inquired. No one invited you. My father chuckled. I thus called off their entire trip, left them stranded at home, and reclaimed every dime. You canceled my vacation, Reddit, I questioned incredulously, gazing at my dad, who was idly browsing through his phone as if he hadn't just told me anything shocking. In any case, you were never invited. Without looking up, he laughed. Anger made my stomach turn. This was not an impromptu change of schedule. He and my stepmother had been planning this for weeks, and I was the fool who hadn't anticipated it. I had been anticipating this trip for months. For once, I felt like I was part of a family vacation. My dad had grumbled about how costly it would be, so I had even contributed money to help with the expenses. I reduced my personal spending and took on more work. That I could help too. And now, witnessing my dad smirk as if it were all a huge joke while standing in the living room, I had an inside sensation. Hurry up. Too many times previously, I had been shoved aside. I've been treated like an afterthought ever after my dad got married again. My stepsister Olivia was the golden kid, and my stepmother Laura never liked me. She was the center of every family gathering. All choices were made with her in mind, and I was labeled theatrical or selfish if I ever voiced any complaints. However, they had never done anything like this before. My money had been stolen, give me the impression that I was on the journey, and then, without thinking, cut me off entirely. My father shook his head and laughed once again. Be less theatrical. Simply put, we didn't think you would like it. In addition, Olivia was determined that this vacation would be unique for the three of us. All three of them. I mean, this family didn't even include me, as I was. When it was convenient for them, they had to put up with a little discomfort. However, they were mistaken if they believed they could get away with this. I inhaled deeply while trying to maintain my composure. All right, I responded in a firm voice. Have fun on your journey. My father waved me away as if I were a child having a fit, hardly acknowledging me. He was unaware, however, that I had more influence on their journey than they thought. You see, my name appeared on a few of the bookings since I had made a monetary contribution. The lodging, the rental vehicle, and even a few of the trips. My credit card was linked to each of them. I also determined they wouldn't be going on the vacation since they had already decided I wasn't. My initial action was to cancel the reservation by going to the hotel's website. After that, I phoned the rental vehicle business and told them I was canceling because my card had been fraudulently used. The outings were canceled. Since I had initially purchased the tickets, I even got in touch with the airline and asked for a refund for my share. Though not much, it was sufficient to disrupt their preparations. What's the best part? I made sure to do all of this the evening before their scheduled departure. As soon as they reached the airport, there wouldn't be a hotel, a car, or any activities scheduled for them. There was commotion when I got up the following morning. I had a ton of furious texts and missed calls on my phone. Initially, my dad's signals were unclear. Have you canceled the hotel reservation? According to the automobile rental provider, there is no reservation. Then the messages grew increasingly desperate as reality sank in. What did you do? This isn't amusing. Give me a call immediately. The rage finally came out. Everything was damaged by you. We have nowhere to go and are stranded at the airport. What a self-centered brat you are. This has to be fixed immediately. I put my phone down and simply grinned. I didn't know what to say to him. He arrived at my place a few hours later and began banging on my door frantically. He was flushed and furious when I finally responded. How on earth did you accomplish that? He spit. I just said I canceled everything. I reasoned that since I wasn't involved in the trip, I also didn't have to pay for it. I briefly believed he was about to lose it as his hands clenched into fists. You are not entitled. You're the reason we're locked here. I gave a shrug. It sounds like a private issue. Olivia might be able to make it unique for the three of you at home. I could see him coming to that knowledge. He was now dealing with the fallout from pushing me too far. I refused to be guilt-tripped by his argumentative attempts. I expressed to him my feelings and how he had made me feel like an outcast, how they had stolen my money and abandoned me as if I were unimportant. They were now experiencing the consequences of their actions. Angrily, he strode off. I didn't care, though. I felt in control for the first time in a long time. But there was still more to come, because what transpired next would elevate the situation to a whole new level, even if I believed that calling off their vacation was the ultimate form of retaliation. And believe me, it exceeded my expectations in every way. The consequences of calling off their vacation were greater than I had anticipated. And to be honest, I quite enjoyed it. My stepsister Olivia, my dad, and my stepmother Laura were all incensed. The greatest thing, though, they didn't have a plan. They had been scheduled to go for 2 weeks, but now they were stranded at home, fuming and bored. I had made sure there was nothing left to mend, but my dad believed he could coerce me into fixing everything. The motel has a full schedule. I had reported my earlier reservation for fraud, so the vehicle rental business wouldn't even accept his reservation, and the flights were now absurdly costly. They were totally screwed, and the result was better than I could have imagined. My dad initially attempted guilt-tripping me. He made phone calls, left voicemails, and even sent messages that varied from brazen manipulation to phony concern. "This family has been severely harmed by you," he wrote. "I hope all is well with you. Olivia feels heartbroken. For us, this was meant to be a unique moment. Oh, you mean that before you shut me off, it was meant to be special for me?" Though I didn't respond, I thought. I allowed them to continue to suffer. It was Lori's time next. For the first time in years, she pretended to care about me, trying the full motherly thing. She messaged, "You know, I really thought we were making progress. I was beginning to think of you as a member of our family. However, this was unkind, cruel. It wasn't harsh to cut me off and take my money. It wasn't unkind to act as though I didn't exist. They only seemed to care when things didn't go their way, which is funny." I let her read. But Olivia was the most hilarious. She made no effort to conceal her entitlement. She berated me in a voice memo saying that I had wrecked the vacation which she had been looking forward to for months. I simply chuckled and removed it. She had been the favorite for years, obtaining all she desired at my expense. Perhaps she had never had to deal with disappointment in her life before. Excellent. My dad wasn't finished yet, though. When he returned to my apartment a few days later, he appeared more desperate than angry. I nearly felt guilty. Nearly. See, I understand. He sighed as though he were the victim and said, "You're mad. However, don't you feel that you went a bit too far?" I arched an eyebrow. "Oh, you mean the way you claimed I wasn't invited after taking my money?" He winced as if he hadn't anticipated my direct criticism. That wasn't the case. He made an effort. We didn't anticipate your desire to leave. You didn't inquire at all." I fired back. "You made an assumption, and you gave me the impression that I was involved until I wasn't, rather than telling me up front." Evidently frustrated, he combed his hair. "All right, I made a mistake, but we can correct it. I simply don't know. We might be able to arrange another trip. This time you can participate." The way he spoke sounded so fake, as if he had no choice but to say it. That's when I came to a realization. I had had enough of trying to fit in with this so-called family, merely hoping for shards of love. I finished a game that I would never win. I shook my head and grinned. "Thank you, but no. I believe I'll spend my money on something that will truly help me." He appeared astonished. "I guess you assumed I would give in. I would then accept whatever fictitious olive branch he offered. Not this time, though. Never again." That was the moment our relationship changed. I stopped trying. I stopped caring. And he knew he had lost control over me. They never got their trip back, and I never got an apology. But what do you know? I didn't need one. Because for the first time in my life, I put myself first, and it felt pretty good.